Hello guys, welcome to today's video. BN146 here in the flesh. um yeah, so trying to see if I prefer the stream with video or not. I mean, I kind of like the anonymity of the previous videos, just having the sound with no face showing, kind of like chess network style. But I also want to try a few videos with a video and see which one I prefer the most. Maybe you guys can let me know which one you also prefer, and I'll see how I'll do it going forward. I also try to improve upon the sound. I hope it's getting better. So today we'll do some game analysis. But first off, big news coming out of um, the nationals that just ended. In case you know what I'm talking about, the Ghana Nationals tournament took place over the past weekend. That tournament is also doubles as the Olympiad qualifiers, and so the top five from that tournament will represent the country in the Olympiad in Russia come August. And I was very happy to see some of those I was rooting for make the cuts. Bernard and Anthony. It was very impressive performances from both of them. But first off, of course, congrats has to go to Mr. Hasford FM, who once again proved himself to be head and shoulders above everyone else in the country. I mean, it's quite impressive with the change going on in the top players in the country, with the young ones springing up and making their voice and their ratings heard. That Mr. Hasford still continues to dominate and still simply prove himself to be the best. And you just have to respect that. He did very well, played very well. What can you say? And he deserved to win. But then the other four also deserve to qualify, and I'm very happy for them. So I will take a look at one of Ben's games. Everyone's talking about the comeback that he did in this tournament. He started with 0 out of 3, 3 losses, and it wasn't just that there were 3 losses, but there were losses to those who were, at least according to rating, the tail enders in the tournament. So it didn't look good going forward, but then he really put himself together and had an excellent final 6 rounds. I think he got 5.5 out of 6 in the final 6 rounds, playing the top 4 or 5 rated in the country. It was just magnificent. So we'll take a look at one of his wins during that streak. He was black in this game against Mr. Anquandah and this was really the win that almost cemented his place in the Olympiad spots. So it was a key game between two people who were both looking to get a score that would make them very comfortable going into the final round. Ben was playing black against Anquandah's white. He played a Sicilian, and so let's go through the game. So Anquandah started with e4. Ben replied with the Sicilian. He mentioned on one of the groups here on that he was switching from the French to the Sicilian full time. You can understand it's a more dynamic way of meeting e4. Maybe at our level may score slightly better than the dreary old French. So they went for an open Sicilian. Knight f6, knight e3, this is all typical stuff. Bishop c4, e6, bishop e3, a6, bishop e3, bishop e7. Up until this point, the opening has gone on fairly normal. It's a Sozin variation of the Sicilian. We are still in the main line, and black has gone for this Scheveningen pawn structure, which is very solid, very flexible. Long term, he'll be looking for breaks like b5, d5, or e5, whichever the position allows him. And it's very solid. Yeah, what can you say? Black has not equalized just yet, but he hasn't made any mistakes that White can exploit so far. But then White's next move very aggressively attempts to pretend like there is some weakness to exploit. Yeah, g4. I mean, when they start playing g4, you start to worry. But then here, it's not exactly indicated. There are many openings where, when black goes with this e6 structure, where white is justified in playing these early g4, g5s. But then in this one, it's not one of them because of the very sequence that Ben spots very quickly and plays. Knight takes d4. And this is the point. Because e5 comes with tempo, you can't take with the bishop. That's what you'd want to do ideally, yeah. But then you meet e5 with tempo, and then the pawn falls with tempo, which is not really what you want to do. So you're forced to take back on d4 with the queen instead. But then e5 still comes with the same tempo. And here Mr. Anquandah had a choice between giving up the pawn with something simple like queen d3, or attempting to keep the pawn, which is what he did by playing queen c4. Now this is where he really deviated from other GM games that have gone down this variation. You can open the Open Explorer here, and there are still 2 games that have been played up until this point by master level players, and both times white went queen d3. Yeah, it's easy to understand why. I mean, black is not really in a hurry to take this pawn. Probably the best move is to take the pawn with the knight. But then in this kind of positions where white is going to castle opposite to where black is going to castle, and the game is going to boil down to who is able to attack whose king the fastest, you don't really want to open up this g file that leads directly to where your king will undoubtedly be. So taking a g4 pawn is something that black probably will do, but then probably has to do, but then would still it takes some bravery to play like this. So you definitely have compensation for giving up the pawn with queen d3. But then he insisted on keeping the pawn with queen c4 with a threat here on f7, forcing black to castle first, and then he could protect the pawn with f3, which is what happened. Which is, I mean, it's fine, I guess, but then the queen's position becomes very suspect. You're in the line of two moves that black wants to play, so you basically give black some extra tempi in comparison to the other lines that we are looking at. And so black does exactly that. b5 comes with tempo, and now the queen has to go to d3 anyways. Then bishop e6 comes. So yeah, in these kinds of opposite castle positions, the game becomes fairly simple, just about who can get to the opponent's king first, the fastest. And the game is determined usually by some Prussian kingside attack. And so both sides stick to it. So he started with h4, going in for that. He probably play h5 first before g5, and that's probably why he didn't push g5 immediately, but then pushed h4 first. Whenever you play g5 too early, the knight gets surprisingly safe haven here on h4. Many times this structure with the knight on h4, g6 proves to be fairly solid, and I mean, it doesn't exactly completely stop white's attack, but then it delays it just sufficiently enough in many games for black to get his own counterplay going here on the queen side. And again, in these kinds of positions, it's all about who can attack the opponent's king the fastest. So many times people do this. You just play h4, h5 first, and then when you play g5, the knight doesn't have the h4 square to go. It really has to go back, and then you get to open up the king much faster. So that's probably why h4 was played first. But then black was now slightly faster in getting to the opponent's queen side. Knight d5 had to be played. Then he exchanged here on d5. Now I'll start praising Ben's decisions here. This was one of the first few decisions that was very impressive. Naturally, you would prefer to take exchange knights off and then leave yourself with a bishop. Yeah, you don't often want to take an exchange a knight for a bishop unless you have very good reason, because the bishop simply tend to be better in many positions. But then here he willingly lets go of the bishop, first because he understands that in positions like this the initiative is much more important than the objective material that may remain on the board. And if you take back with the knight and the e pawn takes, your bishop has to use the tempi going somewhere else. I mean, it's doing fine probably here on b5, but then that's two extra tempi that you don't want to give white. Yeah, I mean, imagine with those two tempis he does something like this and that, then his attack is all of a sudden looking much stronger than yours. So that's unnecessary. He rather gives up the bishop, and then now it's his turn to play, and he maintains the initiative. And again, he plays a move that I found also very, very impressive. Try and pause the position here and guess or try and figure out the move that's the best move, the move that you would play if you were playing black here. If you've not looked at the move on the right side, but yeah, the move is e4, and it's not just a good move because of the tactical points behind it, meaning that when you take, I take back on the g4 pawn, leaving you with the backward pawn, and then making your attack all that much more difficult to achieve. I mean, all those are good points, but what I find especially impressive about this move is the e5 square. In this position, you really want to find something for your knight to do. Your pieces are not too happy. Yeah, this bishop is not the best bishop in the world, and this knight is sort of just waiting to be kicked out by an eventual g5. But then the move e4 unleashes this e5 square for the knight, and all of a sudden it looks like a beast of a piece, because regardless of white's reply, it looks like it's difficult to take this square away from the knight. If white just takes straight up, then the knight takes back on g4, and guess what, it's heading right into that square. And if white decides not to take, which is what Mr. Anquandah did, he played queen e2, then black is going to take anyways, and yet still the e5 square is an outpost that white cannot attack with any pawn. And to open continue with the very correct knight d7, routing the knight into a very strong central square here on e5. Now all of a sudden his pieces are not looking so terrible. The bishop has eyes on this pawn, the knight is coming here, the bishop may get onto this diagonal, forgive my arrows, and his pieces are looking good. Whereas on the other hand, look at this sorry bishop. I mean, this guy is fairly strong, but then the light square bishop white isn't looking good at all. So white castled long, black played knight e5 with tempo, queen e4. So one of the reasons I really like this game is that it really showed Ben's understanding of the initiative in such opposite castles positions. You realize that all his moves come with tempo, and he maintains the pressure. He keeps he's always the one making threats in the position, yes, and that is what the initiative is. So he played queen d7 again, developing with threats on this pawn, forcing white's hand. Again, white has to find a way to defend, and this is where white made perhaps the decisive mistake in the game. The best move here is simply to take the pawn here on b4, and then allow white to take back in some fashion here on g4, and then you play the position that comes out of that. But then white wanted to both defend the pawn and maintain pressure on this one at the same time, which, I mean, on the surface it looks like it's not a bad move, rook d4, doing both things, but then tactically it just doesn't work out. The first problem with it is that it puts these pieces on this diagonal, which our dark square bishop can easily exploit with this maneuver bishop d8 to e6. The second thing is that it rids the queen of a lot of squares. Now the queen doesn't have all that many squares to go to. This square is controlled by the knight already, this square is, and so it really only has this one. And the rook is not really attacking this pawn because of white's next move a5. So again, why did you really put your rook in this awkward position? Now he's threatening a4, which sort of forces white to play a4 himself. Now I'm not very happy with this move a4 that white played. It's difficult to really suggest an alternative. The only other possible one is bishop c4 first, but it's not exactly easy to make that decision in itself. But maybe the bishop not doing much on b3, that may have been the the way to go. But already here, black is very, very comfortable. White attack looks miles away from ever seeing daylight, and already he would be able to push a3 and then get to the opponent's king. So it's difficult to suggest an alternative to a4. But the reason I don't like is that after bishop takes a3, bishop takes a3, rook f c8, all of a sudden there's a huge difference in king safety when you compare between white and black. And you remember from the principles that we discussed, king safety is always the most important thing. If your king is not safe, it doesn't matter the nice pieces you have. You'll probably find yourself in a very difficult position really soon, and that's exactly what happened here. So white played a4 to stop black from playing it himself. Again, I didn't feel that was necessary, but the tempo gave black all the initiative he needed, rook a to b8, and now white has to be on the run. Black is threatening just to take, and so the king plays king d1, bishop d8, taking advantage of the second problem that you found with the rook e4 move. And yeah, already white is in big trouble. It's difficult to respond to this move at all. He chose queen f5, which was one of the best tries you can get in this position, I guess. But already black is winning in many different ways. He can simply take and play the endgame, and the point is that the difference in pawn structure is very telling, and in this case it's decisive. I think the move here is rook g5, just a simple aim of coming here, and it's difficult to defend all these pawns. One of them is going to fall, and the endgame will be winning for black. But I mean, it's difficult to see all of this from this position and go for that endgame when you can just maintain the pressure with simple moves, just moving the queen away somewhere. So Ben went for queen c7, which is fairly good. I think the best move was queen a7, but I mean, who cares? Queen c7 is also good enough. Black responded with rook f4, which was the final mistake. From here, the position is just completely lost tactically. It simply can't be saved anymore. And Ben found the exact sequence to put white to the sword, g6. And you realize the problem of the queen squares now becomes very pronounced. All of these squares are arrows, are controlled. This square is controlled, that one is controlled, and so he has only one square. Has to go back to e4. Now rook b4 continues to ask questions of this queen, and again it's the same problem. The squares around it are all very well controlled, and there's only one square here if it wants to move away. Black decided to therefore to rather block with bishop d4, but that move was tactically completely losing since the bishop was controlling this c1 square, and so rook takes b3 becomes a winning threat. The point is that if the pawn takes back, queen check, the king has only one square, and then rook c2, the king has no squares left. So white will be forced to give up the queen, and I mean, this endgame is just completely hopeless. So seeing this sequence, after rook takes b3, Mr. Anquandah resigned, and Ben moved into a very strong position, requiring only like a draw in the final game to make it, I think. But then he still managed to win even the final game, bringing up a wonderful tally of 5.5 points out of 6 in the final 6 games. More than enough to claim a spot to the Olympiad. So a lot of congratulations to him and to the other members of the team that will represent Ghana, Mr. Hasford, Mr. Lionel, who surprised me and many others with his performance. I mean, we thought he was not in such great form, but wow, he really showed up. And then also Ben and Ajapon, like we've already mentioned, and Mr. Anquandah for also making it in the end. So we hope they represent us well. I mean, they are certainly the best we can put up at this point. So really look forward to their performance at the Olympiad itself. Wish them all the best in their preparations and in the games themselves. And thank you for tuning in to today's video. We will be continuing with our series on the middle game. We have, I think, just 2 videos left to complete that series. So the next one will probably be on minor pieces, and then the final one will be on something that I don't recall right now. And then after that series, I'm thinking of doing another series on chess structures. So okay, more on that later. But thank you very much for tuning in. Enjoy your chess. See you later.